Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Sparda's World. I'm your host, Sparda3G, and this is going to be actually a long episode. Probably because this is actually the first time I'm reviewing all the mangas that I have been reading, and no more like I had to catch up with one series and then the other series. This time I'm actually going to discuss every parts of it. So not only that, we actually have news to talk about, especially the Anime Spring 2015 lineup, which is coming up starting next week. And I had to do a lot of catching up because not only I didn't get to see the anime from the last season, I didn't even get to see the previous seasons, like where Parasite first start off, because it has, I think, 24, 25 episodes, so that means I missed out the very beginning from the other seasons, and I also missed out on other animes from that season. So I gotta do a lot of catching up, and I do have to start seeing more and more animes to start reviewing them, and not only that, just enjoy them for myself, because lately I'm just seeing like animes that already has a manga, um like stuff like Haikyuu. Those are the series I already start off because you know I I needed a new anime, and it's strange for a sports manga to come to my mind, but actually it wasn't me that decided to watch Haikyuu. It was actually a special friend of mine, I guess you could say, and she wanted to help me out, to get my stuff rolling, and I started on December, and it was really good, and I finally get to finish it, and it's worth it. It's really worth to watch that. I'm not sure if you're a big fan of sports manga, sports series, but do I do recommend Haikyuu season one, which season two I believe is coming in the summer of 2015, which I am definitely looking forward to that. And the manga itself is really good as well. So unless you're one of those kind of people that likes to see the sports manga anime only, or doesn't mind, don't mind to read a sports manga, because they are different, especially when it comes to anime. They're the one that get the atmosphere rolling, because you get the cheerings, you get the narrator. Depends on the series. Like Hajime no Ippo is the best example of like when anime come to light. You have that on the announcers, the commentaries. They announce everything. The crowds, the atmosphere is astounding. So that's the huge advantage of sports series coming to the anime. I mean, it's nothing wrong with the manga, because the manga is actually pretty good on their own, especially with the art design and everything else. So it's okay if you only watch the anime of a sports, but it doesn't hurt to read the manga itself as well. In any case, this anime spring 2015 is upon us, and basically a lot of them are starting this Monday. I think maybe like very few, and then a lot of them starts to appear around April 1st or 2nd or even 3rd. And there's a lot of series to actually look forward to this spring. You got, for nostalgic factor, you have Digimon Adventure Try, something that a lot of people actually want to see after I don't know, at least more than 6 years. I'm only saying because it's actually based on the storyline of the Digimon Adventure Try. It's been 6 years after the events of Digimon Adventure. So in this case, this is like a good nostalgic factor, kind of like what they did with Sailor Moon, except for the Sailor Moon needed to be readapted because, you know, the first Sailor Moon didn't really follow too much of the story, the manga itself. So that one is actually is more closer, I guess you could say. And with Digimon Adventure Try, it's pretty much like an anniversary gift for a lot of people who saw the first series and even the second series. I know the second series is different, and I know a lot of people wasn't much of a fan of Adventure 2, because not only you don't get the character, you hardly get the characters from the first season, but you also, a lot of things has to change up, and it just didn't seem right for a lot of people. So maybe this Try edition, it will be more suitable. I mean, the art style is already different, and I'm used to it now. But I would say the first poster they posted was doesn't tell me Digimon. It tells me, I don't know, another school life or something that's gonna be very supernatural, kind of like the girl who leaped time, stuff like that. It kind of has that feeling, but yeah, but it does have Digimon, of course. I don't know what's the story about exactly. I just know they're going for a new adventure and stuff like that. For this case, it's good to go back and you know actually try to rewatch the old episode for nostalgic factor. It may be good. It may be good still, like because a lot of people has a different mindset. But for something like this is like a childhood memory for a lot of people. So seeing Digimon try is no brainer for a lot of people who wants to go relive that past with a grown up characters. So it is gonna be cool to see it once again. I will actually see it. I probably won't talk about it as much, but I'll see it, and you just do it for the nostalgia factor. And then you have Food Wars. That's a new adaptation from the Weekly Shonen Jump, and a lot of people has been telling me this is actually a pretty good series. Now I only got to see like some of it, and I only got to see like stuff like fan service scene, but a lot of people has told me it's mainly happened to the judge, because the judge, I guess they want to be very descriptive of how good is the food taste and stuff like that. So when it tastes so good, apparently it strips your clothes off and you're in a whole new planet, new universe. I have no idea. But I have heard the series is really good. So I'm going to let the anime get me hooked to the series, and then I'll probably follow the manga itself as well. So I'm just going to do that, and because that's what anime do. Some of them probably fails. I mean, look at Tokyo Ghoul Rude, which I will get to that later. But stuff like anime job is an advertisement, but sometimes they do more than that. They actually want to tell a good story if it's like a standalone edition, or even if it's not standalone, it's based on the manga. They actually want to make it the best that they can. Put heart to it, instead of like we could put low budget and people will still buy the product because it is based on the series and everybody knows the series, so nobody really cares about it. That's not the case, with a lot of different series. A lot of series actually put heart to it, and stuff like that actually gets more attention than anything else. I mean, when you look at Attack on Titan, I feel like if Attack on Titan was produced by like a low tier animation studio or anything that just doesn't really put any heart to it, I don't think it would generate that much of a buzz around the world, let alone Japan itself, because I feel like they produced that anime way over than needed to be, like the music, the presentation, the visuals, and so on. They really put all that money into that, and it was a worldwide success, and the rest is history. So Food Wars, it looks promising. Like I said, I got to see like a little bit, and JC staff, the studio, they could do it. I think they could do it justice. I mean, they've been doing good stuff in animation term. I look forward to it. I don't think there's gonna be anything wrong with it. Now, Gintama is making a return. I don't know. This is just based on my theory, so don't take it serious. Take it with a grain of salt. But I feel like Gintama, it was going to be no more anime season. Actually, in fact, a lot of people was actually shocked to hear that it's going to be a new anime, to the point that everybody was so overhyped to the whole anime booth and anime tours 2015. I think that's what the name. It was surrounded by so many fans just going nuts about the Gintama. I wasn't even aware Gintama was that popular, but it is. And I feel like the theory is that they made a movie, which I heard is really good, and I'm going to try to see that one day. They made a movie. I think they call it The Final Mission or something like that. It was the final one. That's for sure. And, it was a limited time in theaters. It was like under 200 screenings. And I feel like Sunrise underestimated the fans because they generated so much money. It generated a lot of crazed fans to gather up and go to the theaters, and it's just like overblown their expectations. And you know, the movie was made by the actual mangaka herself, but it's just funny because it's like it's supposed to be the end of everything, and then they decided to make season three. And while everybody goes crazy, the mangaka was like, "Really? I put so many work for that movie because it's the ending, and you're telling me we're getting season three? Whatever. I'm gonna get more money because of the volume will sell. So whatever." So it is funny, and you know, it's cool that Gintama is making a return, and it is considered to be one of the main hype of you know, like, of Japan. Japan voted this. I think it was like over 2,000, and Gintama just won like a lot. So you know, good for them, good for the series, good for the mangaka, good for everyone. So you know, I can't wait for that more. And there's a lot of other series on there are returning and pretty new to the anime universe. You also have Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works Part 2. So if you like Part 1 a lot, this one is no brainer. This should be exciting. I can't wait. And you know, you got a lot of returning ones as well, like this nice Niseko. I think that's how you say it. I haven't seen it. I haven't read the manga. I think it's good. It looks interesting. Maybe I have heard. I was told that at later time it got a bit too harem, but maybe down the line it will probably get better. I don't know. I haven't read it. I can't really judge everything about it. So in any case, I'd probably give it a try. There's other series out there, and you know, I really don't know where to start, but I would like people to suggest me which anime to go for, because you know, these are starting next week or maybe tomorrow, even Sunday. I'm not sure if they consider that. So there's a lot of things to look forward to, and I really had to start planning which one to watch and which one to review for. You know, I would like for you guys to suggest something to me and suggest which one I should, you know, watch and which one I should. Well, okay, maybe not avoid, but I would just tell me what should I watch. Give me the top 5 of it. You know, something most recommended, something you really want to hear from my top of my voice of what if the series is good, if this episode was good, if it's bad, if it's something I would drop. I don't really drop anime. If I started, I had to keep going. So, you know, that's a risk to take. But either way, I would like to for a suggestion, and if you can't suggest anything, I'll probably have to find it myself. But I don't mind that. So I'll just do it the way I have to do, you know. Now on to the news report on Naruto. It turns out there is a spinoff. Well, actually, it's been announced a while ago about the spinoff, and it's finally announced. The title is called Naruto Gaiden, Seven Hokage, and Scarlet Spring Month. I have no idea what to expect from this, but you know, to let you guys know, I am going to review this manga spinoff, and I am going to read, of course. So will I, you know, follow along through the whole thing? Well, I guess so. Maybe, I'm not sure. I'll probably just read the first chapter and then let it pile up until it finally ends. And then you got the whole movie coming out. You know, a lot of people would like to live blog the movie again, and I am planning to do that if I get lucky with early camera rip, you know. So yes, that's the title. It's starting on April 27, which most likely we're gonna get it earlier because, you know, the whole leak thing, the whole, yeah, you know. But anyway, April 27 is the official release date. It's gonna be I don't know what's it about. It's just all we know is a new generation begins, and that's it. This is not much to say. I was expecting a little bit more to preview to it, but I guess you gotta wait for more. I have no idea what to expect. This sounds strange. It sounds kind of fillery with the Scarlet Spring Month. I have no idea why. It just sounds filler. Maybe because it's so peaceful in the ending. You gotta make up something. I don't know. So yeah, April 27. Now, I would like to say, before I start this impression of mine, I have checked the anime teaser of One Punch Man, and I gotta say, it looks promising. And a lot of people have said, haha, this is such a lies in a way. Like, it's because, it looks like it's going to be craziness, action. Well, actually, it is still crazy, but it's going to be like, a lot of battling. Like this main character is going to have a struggle and stuff like that. And in a way, after reading the manga, that's really not the case. But it's done in a really good way. And after reading the manga, I'm up to the latest chapter, and after reading them, I really, really wonder if the anime can really do its justice, especially with the action scene, because the action scene in that series, let alone the art is fantastic. It is phenomenal. It is better. It's a zillion times better than the one. But then again, that guy, the mangaka, or the author in this case, he really didn't put that much effort to that art in the one. But that's why they decided to have a artist to do the drawing, and he do the story. He pretty much put it this way: the story is already ahead of where the manga is at. The actual manga itself is way ahead of there. Is a way ahead of his story. So basically, the artist, he's basically rewriting. Well, not rewriting, redrawing. He's basically redrawing the action scenes and pretty much keep the story in the same thing, the same dialogues, everything the same. And there you go. Because the drawing again is terrible. It is literally the worst thing you probably see in manga history. But then again, it's supposed to be a web comic, so you can't really argue it's a manga. But the writing and the story, the way I was told, is so good that it has to be serialized. It has to be shown to the world in a manga style. It has to be everybody got to know about it. I mean, people know about the webcomic, but people want to see the art style. People want to see the actions in its fully complete form. And so they have this artist to do it, and you combine with great art and a great writing, you got like one of the best series out there, and it is really, really, really good. It's not only has a great art and it has really cool actions, but it is hilarious, especially with Saitama, who is the protagonist, who pretty much could do one punch and there you go, he wins. It's literally one punch and he wins the battle. That's how powerful he is. The fact that he trained over for 3 years exactly, and then he became too powerful. The fact that he lost his hair, he can lose. He can, I don't know. He gets bored too. That's the funny part. He's bored out of it, and he's all upset that he can't get a equal battling or anything that struggles. He wanted to be the hero, and he got his wish. Now he's bored out of it. So it's hilarious. It's funny because in the beginning you get a lot of hilarity in there, but once you meet Genos, I think that's how you say his name. Once you meet Genos, who's like a cyborg, and he's a guy, he really wants to he want vengeance, right? And he see Saitama just walking down the street naked. There's a story to that, but I think you should just read it. So he's just there, and then he just defeat a villain with one punch, or in that case, it was a slap. It was one time, and then he want to be his students. He want to be his students. He would do it whatever it costs. He even paid the rent and everything. It's hilarious. It's hilarious how this guy is so serious, and then when it comes to all these things, he's clueless in a unintentional way, because again, Saitama is such a normal plain guy that just doesn't really wanted to do anything with teaching and everything. So it works so well, especially with the dynamic between them in a student-teacher relationship. It's really good. It's clever and it's hilarious. And when it comes to action scenes, even Saitama, who could do one shot, gets a cool action scenes, and especially later on with the whole invasion that you will probably be jaw dropping with the art design. It's crazy good. But you could also get a good action scene from the other characters like Genos or any other heroes, which they have ranking system. It's funny, it's fun, it's really good. It has a great art. It has a great. It even made his own fighting animation sequences. It's really astounding. It's great. So definitely recommend it to go out there and read it. It's a monthly series, so it's kind of a shame that you probably have to wait longer every time for another one. And there is a again there's a web comic which is ahead of the manga already. And if you like the story, if you want to get some good writings, you can read from there. But just let you know, the art is terrible because he doesn't really put everything to it. So again, if you wanted more of a writing, then start reading the one, just one. I think that's what they call it. Or you can just type in OnePunch-Man one, and you'll find it. Or you could be patient and just keep reading the full form of the series, but you'll be behind. Also, I'd like to say before we get to the review of the mangas, I would like to say that I was expecting to get a new mic this week, and unfortunately, it just finally shipped to my house. So I got another week to use this mic. I don't know if this mic is that good or it's okay. I hope it's just okay. From what I check on my editing, it sounds okay. It sounds good. I just think another mic will make it much better sounding and everything else. And I'm still learning all this curve of the whole podcast recording. So, it would take a while. But other than that, I hope to get that new mic coming, and, it should be interesting to see the difference. And, let's get to the review. Before we review Tokyo Ghoul, I have not seen the anime, but I have heard the controversial of the Tokyo Ghoul Rude, and boy does it seem bad. And I can't really speak much because I haven't seen it, so I can't be basing on people's opinion. But I have seen a lot of hate, a lot of angers from the fans, the manga reader fans, and it just goes on and on. The ratings, the rants is all over like the internet, the YouTube with the reviewers of the series. Maybe you get some good ones. Maybe, I don't know. I have not seen not one good one at all. Maybe I could have been the one to do the good parts, but I have hear a lot of bad things. I hear people don't want season 3, and if there is season 3, please do it by another studio. For me, I want Brotherhood of Tokyo Ghoul, okay? I want a reboot of this series, anime wise, because this is not good. I have seen first episode of anime Tokyo Ghoul season 1, and oh my god, I don't even know what to start. I'm not gonna even rant. I'm gonna save it for when I finally watch their anime, okay? I'm not gonna say anything else about the anime other than I heard it was bad. The first episode was too different. It followed the manga, but it skipped so many detail. It skips what makes this series good in the first place. It only makes it look like a very nerfed, a very toned down Tokyo Ghoul for people who don't really try to think too hard, don't want to complex characters, complex stuff. I'm not trying to say Tokyo Ghoul is the most complex series of all time. It's not like that, but it doesn't need to be that simple, which they did in the anime. It is very simple. It is too one line. It's too straightforward, linear. It is one-dimensional series. The only good part I heard is the actions. Probably mainly the last episode of Tokyo Ghoul Season 1. I don't know about Season 2, but I have heard there's a lot of things they skipped. A lot of things they took a weird turn. And, people wonder, should Studio Period to be blamed? I know Ishida has work on season two, more or less. I don't know how much he was involved, but he was involved. That being said, um, if you wanted to blame someone, I would say Ishida could get blamed, but he would have the least percentage of the fault in this case. In my opinion, Studio Period should be the fault. Not just because of the presentation, but the way they handle the episodes. There's 12 episodes, and the way they handle everything seems, it sounds rushed from what I heard. It sounds pretty rushed. It sounds like a lot of things has been skipped. A lot of weird turns, such as ignoring Kaneki for the good margin of the series, season, sorry, which says a lot. It's like we're used to Naruto fillers, ignoring Naruto, so we're gonna ignore Kaneki. Okay, fine, you could do that, I guess. You're used to doing that. But the point is, what's going on? Why so many plot holes? Why so many different directions that makes no sense, that doesn't return back to that part? But then again, I didn't see the episode. I didn't watch the anime. I only saw the first episode of the season 1, which followed the manga. Season 2, more or less, I heard. The ending is upsetting. They did not show the crazy battle between Arima and Kaneki. That part is laughable. I don't care if you can't do the censor part. I don't care you couldn't do the whole eye poking scene. That scene was needed for everybody to know the characteristic of Arima being that lethal threat of all ghouls, and Kaneki, being showcasing more character himself. But then again, look at season 1, first episode. Seems like he's going to basic usual trope rather than show more humanity. I mean, for God's sake, they have shown Kaneki being a suicidal guy in the anime. He's like, oh, there's only one way to do this, to get rid of this ghoul stuff, is to stab myself. I'm like, in the manga, he actually thought of ideas like, hey, call the hospital. So when you call the hospital, they will have to do the surgery again, and they will replace my organ, so that way I could be human again. At least he planned that out. Why is the anime he made him suicidal? I have no idea. But I'll save my opinion another time. Bottom line is, the anime was done poorly, and it's a damn shame that's the case, because Tokyo Ghoul deserved better. Okay? It deserved better than anything else. I mean, all series, needs deserve to get that a really good adaptation. Okay, I understand that, but Tokyo Ghoul needs it most because it's been hindered by Studio Period, which seems to have no idea what to do with the series. Just rush things out, tone down a lot of complexity, and just makes it into a series that everybody probably think, it's nothing. That's the worst case scenario. One Piece 4 Kids Edition. It sucks. It really sucks. Now we go to Tokyo Ghoul Read chapters 22. We start off with Takizawa just being crazy. Just pure crazy, I guess you could say that. That's putting it mildly. But yeah, from the last chapter we have him describing, the piece of head as a pineapple. Now we have him talk about jelly beans and all the other description from, human foods. And there's one thing I would like to point out. I wish I remember where I got it from. I know it's from Tumblr, and I wish I could credit to this person if I remember the name. But it is a good, interesting point that if you go back to the first series, you have Kaneki describing human food as a ghoul in a distasteful way, with the whole, this tastes like crap and this crap and stuff like that. Now with Takizawa, he's describing human flesh compared to the human food from his humanity days, because he's a ghoul now, so he's pretty much seeing everything as a reference to the human foods. Like he sees like the pineapple, which funny because you have one person I'm not sure who did it, but it was pretty funny to see an edit of Takizawa in his human days carrying a pineapple, saying he wants some pineapple, stuff like that. And he then changed into a ghoul version, and you instead of seeing a pineapple, you see a human head. So yeah, kind of makes you lose your appetite because of this guy describing everything that's human flesh to human food. Kind of ruins your appetite there. So yeah, he's crazy, into insane. He smashed a guy head right on that pillar, which looks gruesome in a further detail after that panel where he got slammed. I think his head smashed up and popped up. I'm not really sure, but it's gruesome stuff. So yeah, there you go. You're sending manga, everyone. So Kanai beat up Saiki. Though he's not dead, so I guess you could say we're gonna see more of him soon. Not sure when this torso investigation ends completely, but then again, last series you have rank up a lot of investigation not being done completely, so this is probably one of those cases, or he probably gonna die in this arc. I could be wrong, but I guess we're gonna see more of him because Kanai is going after Masuki since, well, yeah, he's just gonna satisfy Master Shu. Since that guy lost his mind from the first series, kind of sad to hear that, to be honest, because when you go back to the first series, I did feel pretty bad for him after Kaneki told him, this is his decision, and he just went insane. He's one insane character that I could actually feel sympathy, which is strange, but that's what happens when you do something right. So we go with Uta versus Hiroko. Well, I gotta say I do like the teamwork display in here, especially where like investigators just come by one. When you got Period just keep coming with their own troops, and then the investigators come up at the right time, and then now more investigators are just keep coming by. So it first start off 1 against 3, then 3 against 3, and then more come by for the investigators. Now the interesting part to me was the Uta face shift. I think that's what he did. It's kind of hard to say. It seems like that's the case when you look at the panels. He seems like he changed he could face shift. I could be wrong. So the surprising part is he face shifted to Arima and Hiroko. Now you are aware that a lot of characters in the other series, they usually stop, shock, and probably tell them how dare you mock him, her. Depends on the character face, depending on who they relate to, who they know. But in this case, Hiroko knows Arima. In fact, he was his disciple, as you remember. And the funny thing is, he hits Arima face easily. Like, no hesitation, no second thought. He just strike him. Like, literally, the second panel, right after the face is shown, it strikes him. Because the first panel, after that's shown, it was just him looking at her like, oh, and then strike him. Now, it could just end it with saying, okay, you already know it's not Arima, of course, so it's all cool and everything. But Uta actually tells him, you actually struck him pretty fast. Why? Is it because you're angry, or is it because you hate him? That's the interesting part, because, if I recall correctly, Hiroko is no longer under Arima at this case, If you look at the past, you remember how Arima was kind of too rough, I guess you could say, for the lack of a better word. He was telling him like, you're late with the weapon. You're late like by 0.1 seconds. It's like, damn, is that really necessary? But hey, Arima is top tier. He is the overpowered investigator. So who am I to question? But that being said, maybe part of that comes from those. Maybe the whole harshness factor to Hiroko for the past probably got into that boiling point. I'm not sure. Or is it because maybe Sasaki took over that role now, since Sasaki is under him now, and maybe Hiroko is jealous? I don't know. Who knows? But I'm gonna assume one of those factors has to deal with Hiroko reaction so swiftly and so hately, hatred. I don't even know if hately is a real word, but it has that hate in there. So I'm actually want to see more of that. It goes to show you that Arima is going to get more explored in this series, this Reeve edition. So I'm actually want to see more of him, because we already got the fact that he's God tier. So now we're going to see more of a human side, his character himself. Now we go to Kanai finding Masuki, carrying that fire extinguisher, which I don't get why she doesn't use her power. Maybe she's just a pure rookie. I mean, she is new to this whole thing, but still, I wonder why she didn't do that. I guess maybe the fear plays. I still wonder what's a flashback though, because her past story. I mean, because she killed her family, which that's pretty devastating, and she wants to be a guy. Probably has a 2-2 connection right there. You know what I mean. So probably they connect to each other. The whole thing. I'm not sure. It's a Sanden manga, so dark story is gonna be told in this series. But that being said, she's not much of a fighter at this point, and she used a fire extinguisher, which is easily dismantled by Kanai. And luckily, Sasaki shows up, come to the rescue. Tell him. I guess you could say he had an epic entrance, more or less, because he came with a full panel, full good 1/3 of a panel. Tell him, sorry for coming late, or I'm just made it in time, whatever. And at first I was a little confused how Kanai knows Sasaki, but I recall the scene where he got the underwear of his weird, and he sensed the smell, and he's like Shu, he's like amazed, I guess you could say. So that's how he found him out, which is comical in a way, but hey, that's one way to find out your opponents or whatever, right? And it ends off with the Nutcracker, because that investigation is still going on, and now she's finally showing up once again, and that's it. That was the end of the chapter. It's actually a pretty good chapter because we're getting a lot of details from the Hiroko side. Uta power, which is still a little bit strange, and he's a ghoul, says a lot, right? I think that's his Kagone, but I could be wrong because maybe it's not. I wonder how he could manage to face shift. I'm not sure if that will play an integral role in the future series. What I mean, future down the line of the series. Maybe it'll be play more of roles to it. Maybe you could disguise more into fit in to certain scenarios, but you never know. It does match his character though, because he's all about the mask, the face, and everything like that. So it matched him perfectly with that whole face shifting. At least that's what I think is face shifting. At this time, it's still a mystery, but it is very interesting to see that kind of power. We got more of details about Hiroko and Arima relationship, and it's interesting, and we're most likely gonna get more detail and further down the line. Again, I do believe Arima is gonna get explored more in this series, so it's interesting, and the whole Nutcracker case is gonna come again because she's showing up. She's about to kill 2 guys in front of her. It's gonna suck, especially if her title is Nutcracker. So I'm a little afraid to see it in visual, but we'll see. Overall, it's a pretty good chapter. I enjoyed it. Things are getting more simple. Things are lining up well. We still don't know where Takizawa is gonna end up going. Sasaki made a return to the screen, made a return, rescue, about to fight Kanai. The Uta and Hiroko are still fighting each other, and the Nutcracker, which this whole arc is based on, more or less, is finally coming to play. So I enjoyed this. Looking forward to next week for a lot of craziness coming in. I'm just a little scared about the Nutcracker part because we might actually get it in detail, and that's gonna scare me bad. So we're on to One Piece chapter 781. And Unfortunately, the battle has not truly begun in this chapter, but fortunately, this chapter was pretty damn good. And I did not mind at all that we didn't get the action from this battle between Luffy and Doflamingo. In fact, this chapter was very necessary to build up the very hype of around it, because already the last chapter was really good to showcase the battle between them, even though it was a bit more one-sided case, but you could tell it's going to be a one hell of a fight. And this chapter is more of a closure, not complete closure, but like a, you could say a necessary for Law to have his one final say in his long desire of him killing Doflamingo for, for Kurazan, and his obviously for himself. But yeah, this chapter was really nicely told and nicely written, and there's gonna be a little, maybe a complaint in terms of how I handle, in terms of like the planning behind Law, and even Doflamingo recover. But let's get to this. Let's start from the beginning. Doflamingo, he obviously make the situation much worse because he's that crazy. So we had the time limit on this whole battle before the island gets destroyed, because the whole his power is just, it's gonna close it in and just erupt it. I have no idea how Doflamingo is gonna escape from his own trap, but then again, he probably has gotten used to this idea. So yeah, he's that insane, and it just put a huge weight to this whole battle. Now you could argue it put a huge weight to the fact that it's gonna be obvious that nobody's gonna get killed, but you never know. Stuff like this could surprise you. One Piece has surprised me time to time in terms of killing off characters or a thing or anything else. I mean, I'm not saying you need to have to die in order to make the series good, but stop. Don't try to cheapen the death, or don't try to cheapen the. I can't say it's cheapened to death. They really make a huge big deal when it comes to Ace and Whitebeard, and when they made a huge deal, I think it's considered one of the a blessing in disguise for having lack of deaths, and then when a death happens, it's a huge ordeal. So I'm not gonna really complain there. I'm just hoping, they're trying not to fake it out too much to make it seem like, oh, we're gonna die, and then it's not happening. You got that from the previous arcs of One Piece already enough. Even the last one with the whole the whole, I think it was I want to say Clay. The whole, it was the last arc. I don't remember what it was called already, but the case in this arc, they make a huge deal, and it does put a huge weight on Luffy to finish the fight before everyone gets killed. And Law is already knocked out, or so they seem, because he made a trap for Doflamingo to not thinking that he's already, to not thinking he's dead, well, alive, sorry, and it shocked him, and it does, and it's like what I said before in the last chapter review. At the very end, he said, "Listen, Luffy," and I guess they're right. It was Law that talked to him, but that was handled in the flashback. So yeah, so everything lined up perfectly. He outsmarted him because Law managed to swap body with another body from far ground to the far ground from his level, and he basically took the bullet, which pretty messed up. But hey, what can you do? You gotta find a way, whatever necessary, to live and to get your revenge, a long desired revenge, which Law pretty much talks about the entire chapter. Which again, this felt like a closure, but maybe not too much of a closure, because you gotta have Doflamingo knock out. But you can't say this is his last speech in the battle, and because he's no longer going to be in the battle. He's too weak. He has one arm. He is tired out. He's damaged badly. So you could say he got his last words on him, even though Doflamingo is not out and dead. And obviously we're about to see the main event. But again, the whole, his character finally showing up more and more, finally telling Doflamingo that he been desired to kill this guy. ever since the day, he killed his own brother, Corazon, which still sucks to even think about that, because when you look at the flashback, which I thought it was one of the better one of the better moments in this whole One Piece second half of the story, I think, if there's no part three. But yeah, it was really good, and it's really sad how Corazon, has to deal with his own brother and he get killed by his own brother. I mean, yeah, I know the whole situation, not really brotherly stuff like that, whatnot, but still, it's pretty damn sad. And seeing Law talking about this throughout the whole chapter, I again, this whole thing just built the attention of why Don Flamingo should die and why Don Flamingo should be taken out at all costs. And it's not just because he's just about to destroy the island, but this guy is just a one evil guy, one screwed up guy, one guy that you really want to hate, you really want to kill him off, and everything else about it. So they really made this into a big deal. Unfortunately, Don Flamingo managed to repair himself, because, well, here's the thing. Law did the gamma knife. I think that's what they call it. Unless there's another translation call it a different else thing. But it's straight directly targeted to the organs, and he destroyed it completely. So he thinks. Then the Flamingo made a repair with strings, and, it does make him too broken or overpowered. But I guess that makes it more interesting in a strange way, to see how Don Flamingo get his what he deserved. And there's some cheap. I guess you could argue there's some cheap factor, especially with Law swapping bodies in order to escape from getting shot to death by Don Flamingo in the early chapters. But they did line up, and it did explain good enough to make it into a fine situation. It's not such a big deal. It's not such a big cop out. It's understandable, and I didn't mind it at all. So I didn't find this to be annoying or anything like that. Now, again, Flaw is taken out. He's not dead. I don't know if he will die in this series, but he's not dead. But he did lose an arm. I'm not sure he could recover it, because he is technically a doctor. So we'll see how this whole event after this battle ends. But what makes it so great is obviously the last page. The last page, you could tell the tension is running high. You could tell the hype between Luffy against Don Flamingo is going to be of one hell of a battle. The last two panels, it just makes it so good, especially with the whole details and the facial expression. Simple art like those, it just makes it more. It makes it more exciting for the next chapter. So, bottom line, this chapter was really good send off for Law against Don Flamingo, because he can't fight anymore at this rate. And so we're going to have Luffy versus Don Flamingo, and it's going to be one hell of a battle. I'm hoping it's going to be one of the best ones that we have seen for quite a while in One Piece series. So I am definitely looking forward to the next week one. So we're off to Bleach 621, and there's really not much to say outside from the last part of the chapter, the last page. And I got not much to say in this one. This one is, I guess it starts to show off the downside of Bleach, and that is the whole pacing issue. This whole chapter, you literally got one thing develop, and that is the fact that the Soul King right hand disappeared, and pretty much Yacht consumed the entire power of the Soul King, and now everything is turned against Shinigami. Shinigami sees the little swarms of baddies, I guess, and they fight it off, and then Aizen comes in and just say, use your Raisu. It's that simple. Just go all out, and that's the chapter. That's really not much to say about this chapter, what I just said right now. That's literally the entire summary in a nutshell. There's everything right there. Not much really to say. I guess you could just the pacing in this is crazy. I wasn't aware I was finished with the chapter under a minute, and I did clock it this time. I clock at times with Bleach, and back then kind of Naruto, because Naruto pacing can be really questionable, and actually it is questionable, but it could be really strange how it works. But with Bleach, you can expect either slow pace or slow pace because of the dialogue and taking your time. Because of that, it could be like, okay, I read this chapter. It took me like 2 minutes, but that's only because there's a lot of dialogues, and this chapter really has nothing else to say outside the dialogues. And there's not much to develop, not much to crave about. It's literally just Youch take the power, swarm of bad guys, Shinigami fights, Aizen returns. That's all I can say. There's really not much going on, and that's it. That's the review. I mean, I'm interested to see I'm interested to see Aizen. No, make no mistake. But that's like the next chapter, and I'm hoping the next chapter is more counterproductive. No, there's not more dialogues or more input. Now everybody witness that Aizen is there, so maybe a lot of people is gonna like, why the hell you're here? Stuff like that. I'm hoping something, anything, anything at this point, because it took me too fast to read this chapter, and I can't even question about the art. The art is what it is, and I'm just hoping we get to the point quicker before, I don't know. I don't think Bleach could get canceled. Maybe it can if it keep up this kind of pacing, but who knows? But I'm hoping we get to the real deal soon. So not much to say with this chapter outside just to say look forward to the next one, because you're pretty much getting the second half of the actual chapter. So we off to Fairy Tale chapter 425. We left off with Wendy taking care of Juvia, and I thought that it would actually, well, it makes sense to take care of Juvia while the others are exploring to Sabretooth. It's just kind of funny how this works, because we're really getting this whole hero and heroine adventure only, which is something that's change of pace, I guess. Something, I can't say it's new, but it's something interesting, I guess. I want to comment one thing, but I would save it for the very end, because I've been hearing this a lot, and I really don't like to talk about this in the podcast, no less. But I'm just gonna tell you this a small little weird story I've been hearing from the Tumblr. It is Tumblr. A lot of people are always gonna say something wacky stuff or something in the comparison, and by comparison, you should know what I'm about to talk about. But let's get over with this chapter review. We have Natsu and Lucy finding Sabretooth. It ends up being like a huge palace now. It's really updated, and Natsu, Natsu want to tell Lucy one thing and to remember for the time being until they finally get Gray, is that he's promising her that he's gonna get Gray back to the guild, and there will be no more question of it. And seeing Natsu being a serious side is pretty much give you the idea that this whole situation between Natsu and Gray is gonna be really major. And it's funny with the whole it's funny to see Lucy, keep telling him to turn around, because not to turn around. It's like a driver is just turning to the back seat and looking at the back seat while he's driving. It's crazy not to look forward. So in a way, that was just one way for the mangaka to interrupt the scene, which seems like a really nice relationship scene. With the whole promise and trust. Because obviously this is becoming a serious situation, and you have Lucy pretty much, finally make Natsu to turn around because he's being an idiot for actually keep looking back while he should be looking forward before they crash and probably even die. So yeah, dummy. But again, it's understandable why Natsu has to tell Lucy that, and of course, of course they had to put this on the line, since we find out at the very end why he's doing this, why he's so scared, and why he's like very intimidated with the whole situation. Now we see the entire crew, like Yukino and others, Sting, I okay, with this whole 1 year skip, I kind of expected for some character difference in terms of design. You got some for momentarily. Mainly like Natsu and Sting. Natsu, he has a lot of hair and a pretty roughed up and clothes design, but then he got everything back to normal, which kind of seems like a tease, and at the same time, it's just a Fuju sequence from the Mashima, the mangaka. So it's kind of funny how it works that way. Lucy, at least she has a long hair. That's all I can say. Sting, he is gigantic. he's gigantic for the time being until he lost all that weight thanks to Yukino's summons, Libra. I guess he's trying to skip ahead to make him skinny again, back to normal self. So yeah, again, you don't really get to see that much of a different characteristic in terms of design. Power up wise, they are stronger. That I will give. They are stronger. Of course, Nasa could do one shot flare now. Lucy could fight her own by using the compatibility power from the summon, which I thought that's cool. And Wendy, I guess she's just strong. I would like to see more Dragon Force. Well, of course, you gotta wait. But yeah, in terms of character design, you're not gonna get that much of a difference. The only one that's changing is Gray, but that's only because he's consumed by darkness. So once he gets back to normal, we'll probably see his normal look, but maybe he will get the power that he desire, to end. But we'll see. So yeah, Nasu went to look for a rogue because this actually connects to the whole future rogue talk between him and Natsu. If you recall, all the way back 2 arcs ago, which it is pretty long time since that last arc was one of the longest arcs, and with the whole conversation of telling him you better protect Froach because that's when he dies. That's when Rogue became consumed by darkness and whatnot. So it finally connects to that part, which it's actually cool to know today. It actually didn't leave off with an open ending or anything with a plot hole to leave off. So it's interesting to see that coming back. I did like Minerva and Lucy bearing the hatchet from the past arcs. Well, mainly the Grand Tournament one because she did wreck her. She did wreck her in that tournament competition, and Lucy was okay because it was for the competition. It's a tournament, but even Minerva thinks that she went overboard. But hey, you just let it go. It was a game, and even if you rough it up, still alive, still kicking ass. Stuff all the whole 9 yards. So it's okay. It's not so bad because it's not like Minerva killed a person or anything like that. She was harsh, but again, she does a lot of things in a harsher way, and she did redeem herself from last year. So in a way, I still like this, and it's between Lucy and Minerva. It's not like Minerva is apologizing to everything that happens outside of Lucy. So it's nice. It's a short, simple, nice apology accepted moment. So I like that. I like that little small details of characters with interactions between the once a not a bad guy, but a harsher person. So it's nice. Now we have the whole again. Nasu tells Rogues to stay in the guild with Sabretooth, and being guarded by Minerva because I guess he needs to be babysitted. But the whole real deal is having Froach and Rogue not to go to this mission, and it's a mission that's actually involved with the Avatar. Again, not the series, but the Avatar, the guild. Again, it involves with that situation, and that's where Nasu decided to go for himself with Lucy and Happy, and kind of crazy to even have only those two, unless he go back to Wendy's and bring Wendy along, because they're gonna need more help, unless they find other fairy tale guild. Well, I do believe Sabretooth is gonna get involved. They're gonna get involved. I just know it. Will Froach die? That remains to be seen. I don't know. It's one of those cases of even if I tell you what happened in the future, it's going to happen one way or another. But we'll see what happens. I'm not sure if Mashima has the the courage to do a dark twist into this whole scenario. But yes, Gray is the guy that kills Froach, and he's the guy that changed Froach forever in that timeline. So we're gonna see Gray versus Natsu for sure, and it's gonna be, again, I wish they were like under the same roof, good guy, and different circumstance, but bad guy and the good guy situation is not so bad either. I was just hoping for the first one. It would have been like something different, a little unique. But then again, uh, Gray is consumed by darkness, and he is completely evil just due to the darkness, not to his own desired need, not to his own mental state. So, I'm looking forward to that fight. And yeah, that's pretty much the chapter. And, it was an interesting chapter. It's more informative again. Bury the hatchet, get more detail on the whole rogue situation that connects to Gray. Makes sense now. So it was interesting. I didn't mind this. Nice laid back chapter. The funny thing is, this whole scenario really feels like it's mocking Naruto. I just don't. I understand where they're coming from now. It finally occurred to me why people are connecting this. Now, I don't like to connect stuff like this because they all have their different entity. But I will admit, some of the stuff in Fairy Tail does seems like it's mocking Naruto more than usual. It feels like it because you got the whole rival. They're both rivals, and now Gray's the bad guy. Even though it's consumed by darkness, it's not the same as Sasuke. Because Sasuke is all pure and he's doing his own will. With with here we got Natsu and Gray. Gray's consumed by darkness. Natsu is his rival. He promised Lucy that he'll bring Gray back, and he even made it out to be, I guess you could say, pairing moment. A nice, sweet moment. I like to see as a relationship being, showcased again. I'm not saying like this is a pairing thing, but it's not even about that. It's just the way how this whole sequence, it just seems similar. But again, it should not be compared regardless, because they all have their different ways. They all have the different styles. And I guess you could try to argue if he really is mocking Naruto. I guess he's trying to say. I guess you could try to argue like Bashima is mocking Naruto so badly he's gonna do it his way, and his way will be like something that a lot of fans will say, yeah, that's what it should have been, But who knows? It seems very coincidental, I don't blame you guys, but it's best to not to compare. They all have the different ways of handling things. Whether one is good, one is bad, one is poor, one is great, one is whatever. The point is very coincidental, and maybe we should not think any further than it's a fairy tale series. The series is fairy tale, and the other one is Naruto. They're shonen, yeah, but again, let's not go too deep, okay? On to Seven Deadly Sins, chapters 119. This is actually a pretty good chapter, and it's actually kind of funny to see the advantage of having I know everybody in this series is like a Dragon Ball Z tier in some form of way. Not like going crazy as in flying into space and stuff like that, but the explosion, the powers, all that craziness, which is still fun because it is a fun series. But it actually took advantage of the Seven Deadly Sin being overpowered in some form of case, because you get the idea that Holy Knights, they're strong and all, but Seven Deadly Sins are even stronger and pretty much really, really powerful. That being said, this 10 commandments are even more powerful, to the point they actually bring fear to them, mainly to the other Seven Deadly Sin. Meliadus, he knows them and he is scared too. It's gonna get worse if they come by in full force. Now the 10 commandments, they need to recharge because they ain't come back in fully power. So at least they have some form of advantage, but they're still pretty powerful, of course. And Hidrick's son wants to save Dreyfus because of course they're best friends. So I guess it kind of makes it a little irritating for some that perhaps wanted to see more deaths in this series, or the fact that some bad guys aren't being bad guys, they're just being, you know, lost minded, and then they're gonna be redeemed or something like that. But you never know. Maybe something twist will come in. Maybe something else happens, and maybe it'll be more satisfying than what you fear the most. But you never know. It's still early to say. So yeah, the demons, they talk to each other. They'll have a conversation what to do next and where to head over. And this Galen, I think that's how you say his name. This demon, part of one of the members of the Ten Commandments. He's so thirsty to fight some strong force, or just want to fight. He just want to kill. Just so thirsty for one. And the other one pinpointed the direction to go for it, and he's like, okay, I'll go for it. And he just shoot through the moon. Okay, not to the moon, but he shoot through the sky, and pretty much, yeah, he's going there in a matter of seconds. We have this discussion over the Ten Commandments. Again, the fact that these guys are feeling scared of the Ten Commandments showing up is actually saying a lot, because again, we just came back from this last arc where they all showcase their power, where they showcase their teamwork, and they showcase how, pretty much why they got the title of Seven Deadly Sins, and just too overpowered. Which reminds me, we haven't seen the seventh one yet, so we're still waiting for the seventh sin member. And yeah, that being said, we have seen six of them, and they really are pretty powerful, and they have their own style of perks of their fighting abilities. And of course, the Ten Commandments is even worse. So the fact that we see them being scared is saying a lot, and it actually works to his advantage, which I actually gotta give credit to the guy, the mangaka of the series. I have to give him credit to actually give us the idea why this is such a huge deal, and it makes sense even coming after from the Holy Knights War. So this actually works to the advantage, and I kind of want to see how this is gonna be handle with this balancing between the Ten Commandments and the Seven Deadly Sins, which is funny how much they have like a lot of religion connection in terms of name, at least. So we find out more of the sacred treasure, Lost Vines. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not good at pronouncing, especially if I'm. I know they have some English name, but like this kind of stuff, like what I just trying to say, is it's hard to say if it's pronouncing in a Japanese formal way or is it trying to say in an English formal way. But yeah, the sacred treasure, it got the explanation about the clones, because you would assume if you split the clones, you would be all of them are too powerful, all of them are like same equal bound. But of course, like a lot of series, when it comes to cloning, it's gonna split the power up, and this one is no exception. So they explained that. They also showcase Melida's groping Elizabeth once again in clone style. So if you're not a fan of that, I understand. But at least he got his ass kicked, so there you go. I just wish Elizabeth did fight back, because it is pretty annoying for him to do that to her, to a girl no less. Yeah, you're always gonna hear that kind of complaint. Maybe that's why his popularity poll, he was in fifth place rather than being the top three. He is the protagonist, But whatever. Point is, he was showcasing, him seeing if they're all real, which they are real because they grope. And yeah, they explained the power splitting up in parts, and they explained why Meliodas is a perfect choice for this, because his whole thing is all about counters, his full counter effect. It actually works more advantage. It just doesn't require him as his strength and power. It just requires the fact how the power that coming from the villains. So that actually works advantage, and it actually makes sense, and it's kind of clever how they handle that kind of situation to make the whole cloning system, not unique, but in a nice turn event, rather than like let's split each other because we could overpower this one man. You get that from a lot of different series. They always use it as like let's split up apart so we could just beat down this guy. But in this case, it's like let's split up apart so we could reverse the counter to these guys. I thought that's kind of cool, and it is not unique, but again, a different nice twist to it. So I like that, and it makes sense for Melodus to have that kind of power. This bit still wants to be useful. I I'm hoping she would be more of a. Okay, I don't think she would be a fighter. I do think she would be a great support because she the healing ability is like a white mage right there. So I'm only hoping she gets developed to something that she would be very useful, not just for Melodus, but for the entire team of Seven Deadly Sins, and so forth. So I'm just gonna wait out for a little while because they are playing that part of the story of her wanted to be more useful for him and everybody else. So give it time. Then Galen is appear, like I said, from the very beginning to the very end of this chapter, very quick. So that already showcased the speed of the demon, the speed of the Ten Commandments. So there you go. That's pretty much showing you how powerful they are. Diana got scared, which says a lot. Again, we just came back from the arc that they just defeat a bunch of holy knights with Breeze. Well, not Breeze. They got their ass kicked too, but it was overwhelming power. But the fact is, one guy, one demon shows up and she's all scared, and you can't blame her because it's a whole new story. It's a really different case of story. It's like a switcheroo now. Now they're the one being scared. And then you got Hawk because he has the sensor thing. And remember how the power level, everybody got like different type of power level, especially like we came off from learning about Melodus coming like over 3,000. Now with Galen, he's over 26,000. So there you go. It's one of those over 9,000 situation. But realistically, this is a huge threat. Just the fact that he's that powerful, gap is way too huge. So it's pretty interesting to see how they're gonna change around the whole scenario between the knights, the Seven Deadly Sins, and the Ten Commandments. Like now, is the table has turned. And I'm actually looking forward to see the first member of a commandment going against these guys. I actually want to see how this plays out, and I want to see how different it's gonna feel like from the early arcs. Since the early arcs, you do have the Seven Deadly Sins just run over everybody in their path more or less. So overall, I find this chapter to be pretty good actually, because you get you got a good explanation, you got a good reason for him to have that power. The groping part I could do without. The we're learning more of the Ten Commandments and their personality in some formal way. They need to recharge. Elizabeth's still developing, but it's gonna take time. And now we're finally getting to see one of the deadly sins. We not deadly sins, the commandments, and we're not wasting time to showcase them. So I'm actually intrigued to see the next chapter, how this all gonna play out. So that's where we go to My Hero Academia chapter 35. This one has a lot to ride on. This one has a lot of anticipation, at least to me, because the next chapter is something that might be very effective to the audience. And I'll get to that after reviewing this whole entire chapter. So, now this chapter itself is actually pretty good in terms of development. I mean, the action, they did it off screen, off panel in this case. They did it off panel, and they kind of tease you what could be the potential of this series. But in due time, we're probably gonna see the full potential of the series, and maybe we could be like, we could start discussing about the powers, and we could discussing the possibilities, what they can do, what the show can really take us further. They had that whole hero concept down the pack, so we just want to see how the battling system will work. I mean, we really get the humor and everything else. We just want to see how the battle will go out. Again, we already got that preview from All Might going against with that Dr. Hand, whatever his name was. The whole first time fighting a villain, the other villain who sent flying and I got captured. But point is, we got some of the snippets of what the battle could go down in this series. So, we continue off with the tournament. We start seeing we're seeing more and more of the tournament, but again, a lot of them are done off panel and they're done short, according to Deku. I'm gonna call him that, okay? So I'm gonna call it the Deku instead of Izuku. I'm gonna call him Deku from point forward. So yeah, as the battle goes on, Deku records every information, and Uraka, she's fascinated to see him being so overworking with his data collection, and pretty much overwork himself just to know his opponents and just see an analysis of the opponents, so he could be well prepared. He's very hard worker, and she's just there, standing there, being amazed. But at the same time, she's a bit ashamed of herself because you know her. When you look at back in the older chapters, as she's a good asset to the whole team. She's helpful. She's a great support actually. It's just when it comes to fighting, well, again, the series hasn't showed the fighting until now. Now, when it comes to fighting, she noticed that she does go behind their back because she'd rather be in a team more so on a standalone fighter, like getting your own rival, yeah, getting anticipated by the atmosphere of a one-on-one duel, stuff like that. Like ever since the time where Aiden want to declare Deku to be his rival, you got that energy, that that will of surpassing the other person, the rivalry, the aiming for the future, stuff like that. You know, Uraka already explained her desire to be the hero, and it makes sense and everything. But a lot of people are showing their fire, their desire to beat their opponents, to beat their rivals, aiming for the top. So, that fire that she is somewhat missing. So, you know, it's understandable why she's like that because she's a nice person and she's a good support team. She's a good supporter and all that jazz. But when it comes to like being a one-on-one thing, that's something she has to go through, and in certain case like this. So she's told them that they will meet in the finals. And I find her character to be pretty good so far in terms of this series, and I do like to see the action, which is the most anticipated part for me, because I feel like if she doesn't do well in the action presentation, and when I say presentation, I don't mean the fact she has to win, but she has to she has to come off strong. She has to come off not like very weak. Because this, you gotta make a first impression. Again, this is the first time we started seeing battling. Now, before I go further about the battling, it is rather funny to see Aiden versus Hasumi, because it started off with Aiden carrying the equipment of hers. It's like, I want to showcase the equipment of her because it feels wrong if I don't do a favor, which actually backfired. But at the same time, not so much, because her purpose was to have the guys down the audience, the company, to be impressed the equipment she has. So in other words, she's a great advertiser. Advertisement, I mean, sorry. So it's like, what? That's your purpose in being this tournament, this battle, and then once she's done doing that, she walks out and get out of bounds, and she lost. So yeah, she took advantage of the guy to advertise her products. It's weird. You could be disappointed that you don't see the battle, the potential they has, but still, I admit that was pretty funny. So I didn't mind that scene. But going back to the battle, now if you recall, Uroka is fighting Katsuki, who is like pretty much one of the top tier fighters, one of the top tier heroes in this case, because he got the grenades, he's all fired up, no pun intended. So you got a legit strong fighter. You could say like, okay, we compare to a C rank class to a almost a S rank class. It almost seems one sided, which I can't blame Uroka and other competition on the side stage. I mean, even Deku's trying to help her out, which is nice of her to turn it down because it goes to show you that she really wants to do everything on her own. Even if Deku was nice enough to try to help her by showing what Kasuki, or as Deku refers to him, Kachan, his weakness and all his strength and everything else. Well, I'm not sure it's everything, but it's every last minute stuff that he has collected. So, you could understand his quirk and everything, what he can do. But she turned it down because, she wanted to prove herself. And, it's nice of her to actually try to do everything clean. Not like, aha, I got lucky, I know everything about you. So, stuff like that. But, she's going to do everything what she can do on her own will. Now, the last battle before hers, it was a no contest, and apparently they're gonna settle it, not a bye, but rather an arm wrestle. Simple as that. Okay, so yeah, they're gonna do an arm wrestle. She's about to fight Kasuki, which honestly, this is very anticipated for me because the next chapter might actually show a battle, like a long battle. I'm not sure how long it'll go. It'll probably be a chapter. I wouldn't mind a chapter. What I do mind, or you know what I mean. What I do care is how they're gonna present her, because we all know Kazuki. He's powerful. He's powerful as hell. He's strong. He could be the number one hero in that class for all we know. But it's all about the other characters, the underdogs, as you could say. So in this case, she's the underdog. And everybody's already guessing this is going to be a huge upset victory because, right, the huge upset match since she's not really a fighter, or more or less that the fact that Kasuki is just a one powerful hero. So I'm expecting to do good for the battle itself. I'm expecting the presentation to handle well. I expect go out with a bang, don't lose in a whimper, go with a bang. So I'm really pulling off for this next chapter. I have seen spoiler images. There's only 3 pages. I think there's more actually. I think it's a whole thing came out, but I don't know. I have I have seen. Only see because it hasn't been translated. But it looks promising. And I'm happy that it's not going to go down like a very whimper way. Because a lot of people are all about first impression. Now, it's still early on in the series, and her character is still developing, because everybody's developing. Everybody wants to be a hero. Everybody's getting their purpose now. You got, again, I didn't finally exploit his purpose, not only just to be like as cool as his brother, but now he want to challenge Deku into a standoff because they're both going to be heroes, but he want to be better than him. So they have a rivalry game in there. So everybody gets their own rivals. Everybody gets their own purpose. Everybody finds something to motivate themselves. So Uraka, she's going to get that motivation, I guess, somewhere in this battle or after this battle. She's learning. Everybody's learning. And I really can't wait for this next chapter. I'm actually anticipating more than I should be. But I am really anticipated for this one. So overall, it was a pretty good chapter. Nice art. It has a really good art. The showcase of a battling, it has potential to showcase a really cool action scenes, cool art panels and everything. So I really enjoyed this chapter. And really, the next chapter, I'm really pulling my legs for her. If she wins, I'll be shocked. I'll probably have my jaw drop. But I don't expect that. I just hope they do her justice. I just hope everything comes down clean way. I just hope it doesn't make everybody turn against her. So that would do it for my reviews. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to adapt this whole thing. And I'm still discussing about having 2 episodes per week scheduling. That way I could at least get out the way with the Tokyo Ghouls, 7 Deadly Sins, and every other series that comes out on Monday. And then the other episode, it would take care of the one that comes on Thursday or even Friday when in a rare case. I mean, I just found out that Haikyuu chapter 151 just was released this early morning. So, you never know. I was suggested to review that manga, but I will just take care of it on Tumblr for now. There's gonna be a lot of series I only review on Tumblr, and the other series like Tokyo Ghoul and Fairy Tail will be taken care of on the video podcast or podcast just in general because I don't do that much visual, right? So, stuff like those, it comes and goes to be in the podcast. Right now, it's these series is going to be the podcast. The other new series is going to be on Tumblr for the time being. The anime wise, since spring 2015 anime are coming by very shortly. I haven't. I'm hoping you guys suggest me suggest me animes to watch. I already got Digimon and some little other series. I'm more like, because some of them are nostalgic, some of them are like a continuation that I have seen, or some of them I'm curious already, like Food Wars. I'm curious. It might be bad, the anime, I don't know. But I'm gonna still. I just want to see the story. I want to see what I should expect from this from time being. So I'm still hoping you guys could suggest me something. I'm still trying to work things out. I'm hoping I get my mic by Wednesday. It says it's gonna get it here by Friday, but you never know. I've been getting things much earlier than the suggested delivery estimate. So in due time, I hope everything gets better with this. I'm still young at this. This is only episode 4. Things will improve, and I could start learning the curve. I'm started learning. I'm adapting. So, I'm hoping I'll get to what I visualize in my head. So in due time. Thank you for support. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you next week for more podcast reviews. Take care, everyone.